All right, everyone, we're going to go ahead and get started here in a second. But first, I've asked our high school team leader, Taylor Swan, to say a quick prayer for us, and then we're going to jump into some stuff. Hi, Taylor.
Hello, God, we lift this time to you, Father. Have your way in everything we do and everything that's said in this meeting. Father, we thank you for the opportunity to gather, even though it's in a setting that is hard or unfamiliar to some of us, or at least to me. Lord, direct everything that's said. Have your way in Jesus' name. Amen.
Thank you, Taylor. I want to thank everybody for joining us today virtually. I know that the current circumstance and even the plans that we had for our spring banquet and fundraiser, though it would have been great to be together at this time of year. I have to be thankful for one kind of technology in this season, because I know that had something like this happened 10 or even 15 years ago, it would have been really difficult for us to have some kind of virtual event over AOL or dial-up or whatever we were working with at that time. So an MSN Messenger banquet probably wouldn't have gone as well as a Zoom one. So we're pretty thankful that we are living in a time where technology does provide a little bit more connection, even though it also comes with the drawback of distraction and all that. So thank you for tuning in today, for everybody who's watching us live, and for anybody who might come and watch this a little bit later. We're excited to be able to share with you today some of our mission, our vision, our values, and some of the goals that we're going to be pursuing here for 2020. This has been pretty disruptive time for I know for myself and for our mission. But despite that, there are still things that we hold as core values, as things that are really important. And so we just want to take the opportunity to be able to share that with you today, and knowing that the work that the Lord is doing through Young Life in this community is still really important and still really necessary. And so you're going to hear a lot of things today about our mission and our values and the things that we want to accomplish for this year, and how you're going to be able to support that or be advocates toward those things. But I think the first thing that I really just want to share with everybody is Young Life as not just a local, but a national and international global mission is really dedicated in several ways, but mainly through prayer. That we have committed people, individuals, communities, organizations across the world who meet together regularly to pray for this organization. Because we know that every goal, every accomplishment, everything that we'll experience in the ways of success will all be determined through our faithfulness to the Lord Jesus Christ. And that is where Young Life has found its start and its roots is through dedicated prayer. And so I want to share with you guys a video. We're going to have several videos that we're going to go through today. But this first video is really just kind of highlighting the mission of Young Life as a global organization and global missionary effort. And so this is from the heart of Jim Rayburn and us as an organization. And so this is the mission of Young Life.
It all started with a prayer and a man who listened intently to the Lord. Jim Rayburn knew Jesus was the answer to every heart's longing, and his singular vision was to provide kids with a proper introduction to the Savior. His dream took flight in 1939 in the small town of Gainesville, Texas, and by 1941, the Young Life campaign was born. Starting with 5 staff and a board of directors, the work of reaching kids with the gospel slowly began to spread around the country. Of course, many lessons would be learned. The art of going to kids on their turf to build bridges of friendship and trust. The art of inviting them into the adventure only a relationship with Jesus can offer. The art of taking kids to a place made just for them, where they can experience the greatest week of their lives. The art of helping them grow in their faith through campaigners, service, and life-on-life discipleship. the art of enlisting local volunteer leaders and committee to work alongside staff in the work. The vision would not be confined to the borders of the U.S., however, and by 1953, Young Life expanded into Canada and France. The work started in suburban high schools, but the vision grew to include reaching every kid. Every city and country, middle school through college, military, teen moms, and kids with special needs. Today, Young Life is indeed reaching a world of kids with a strong presence in every state in the U.S. and nearly 100 countries. More kids are laughing and singing in club than ever before. More kids are hanging out with mentors. More kids are beaming as they arrive at camp. More kids are encountering God's Word. More kids are discovering there's a greater plan for their lives. And it all started with a prayer. And today, more than 8 decades later, it continues with another.
I love getting to share that video with people because it really highlights the emphasis of Newberg Young Life and Young Life in general as a global mission to being dedicated to prayer and understanding that the work that we do in this community, the work that our leaders volunteer their time and sacrifice their resources and energy for really begins with a prayer. And Newberg Young Life is no exception to that. Almost 20 years ago, Newberg Young Life began with a group of people who are dedicated to seeing teenagers reached in this community. They met regularly, they prayed often, that there would be people who would answer the call to reach out to the youth in Newberg. And so now here we are almost 20 years later, and this is Newberg Young Life. It is leaders who are well past high school, those who are college students and those who are high school students who have begun relationships with Christ, giving their lives and their time away so that their friends and that their younger siblings and their siblings' friends will know who Christ is. They meet with them in one-on-ones in small groups. They have intentional time to pray for not only each other, but also for their larger community in their school. And that's the impact of a small group of people 20 years ago meeting together to pray. That there would be somebody who would answer the call and say yes, that I love Jesus enough to want to share that love with teenagers that have no reason to want anything to do with me. And so here we are at this point, and I'd like to share with you a little bit about what the real impact of Newberg Young Life has in this community and what that looks like. At this time and this year, what this has looked like is 38 leaders being placed as Young Life College, and wildlife leaders in Newberg schools. This includes Newberg High School, Mountain View and Chehalem Valley Middle School, George Fox University, of course, but also our participation in some of the private schools in Catalyst. We have students who find themselves at Young Life Club in any of these environments. This looks like over 500 kids known by name. That we have leaders who have committed themselves that whenever they get to meet a new kid at a football game or basketball game or even in the cafeteria, that they're dedicated to making sure that they remember that kid's name. And then the next time they meet them, they get to greet them by their name. This looks like on an average over 52 kids in a club setting. Now, if you don't know what club is, it's we like to describe it as a party with a purpose within Young Life. And essentially what this is our platform for lifting up the gospel. This is an environment where kids can come and they can have fun and hang out and listen to music and feel heard. But the key to it is the environment that we create where we know that they can show up regardless of who they think they are, regardless of what they've done in their past, regardless of what their family looks like or what their faith history has looked like. They can show up and be known in these places. And they can build relationship with leaders who want nothing but to get to know who they are and what the big questions are for their lives. And at the end of every club, we always say it's not a club unless at the end of it, a leader gets up and shares the gospel. And so weekly, we have wildlife meeting, we have young life club at the high school meeting, and we have young life college meeting where students get a chance to participate in the formation of their own faith, and are given a chance to respond to it in a very real way, in a way that makes sense to them and is on their own time. And this looks like over 100 kids and leaders from Newberg who are ready to go to summer camp this summer, where they'll get 5 to 7 days of uninterrupted time in places that are specifically created for kids to have the best week of their life, where they get to experience some things that they would never get to experience here in Newberg, where they get to be set apart from technology, from distraction, and they just get to have the time of their life and let go. This also means that they get a chance to participate in club on a daily basis and get to hear the gospel lifted up by somebody who has been training and learning and practicing for the last 6 to 8 months. But the important thing is that they also go with those same leaders who have been pursuing them all year, who've been building a relationship with them, all for the chance that at the end of that week, they get to say, what do you think? Would you like to respond to the message of Jesus Christ? And so that's the mission, that's the impact that we get to make in this community, but that is only a sliver. These numbers that I get to present to you today are really only a fraction of the real impact that our leaders make in the lives of kids. And a little bit later in this presentation, we'll get to hear from a couple of our Young Life leaders, as well as one of our students who's going to share his story too. And so what this is really, again, it all started with the dedication of prayer from a small group of people. And here we are almost 20 years later, and it's expanded to this. Now, in the midst of the current situation and in the ongoing health crisis, Young Life has had to respond in a way to the unique needs and challenges that have been presented to us in the current environment. And so I'd like to share with you a little bit of what that has looked like in the midst of the COVID-19 outbreak. Young Life as a mission, our DNA is to be incarnational. And what that means is showing up in the flesh. We get that from John 1, where it says the word became flesh and dwelt among us. Now, it's hard to be there when we're required to be socially distanced. That is something that is very contrary to who I am as a leader, to what Young Life is as an organization, when we're actively told not to show up. And we understand that is prudent, and those are the precautions that are needed to be taken at this time. However, our heart is always to be in the midst of it with kids. And so some of the things that has looked like in this current situation has been leaders who have been dedicated to writing handwritten notes to their kids, to all the kids that they've ever had an address for, where they've taken some time to go to a store, to buy stationery, to buy pens, to buy the postage, and to take their time to write out a note to a kid just to let them know that they're still there, that they still care for them and are still praying for them daily. What this looks like is meeting some of the needs that have been left in the wake of not being able to continue in-person education. We have some leaders who have been committed to tutoring and using their knowledge through school and everything like that to tutor their kids in the midst of a lack of in-person education over FaceTime and Zoom and other social media platforms. This still means that we're hosting our campaigner events our campaigner events through online platforms, and even some social distance campaigners. A group of our junior boys, along with their leader, Brady Bentley, meet every Tuesday for social distance campaigners, meaning they bring a chair, a snack, and their Bible and get a couple hours just to engage with each other socially, but also get a chance to dig into their faith and learn more about who Christ is and what he means to them and how they can share him with other people in the midst of the situation. What this also looks like is leaders using food delivery apps and porch drop-offs to make sure that their kids are still feeling loved and taken care of. One of our student staff, Adam LaFountain, has done multiple Dutch Bros runs and has left those drinks on the porches and driveways of some of his guys, just as a small way to say, I'm still here, I still care about you, reach out whenever. And what this has really looked like is making sure that we're all available as a resource to kids who have found themselves in the midst of a situation that is unstable or chaotic. We know that for some of our kids, having a stay-at-home order was not a good thing for them. That their home lives can be unstable or chaotic or disruptive. And so the connection that a young life leader provides in the midst of those kind of situations is to be a non-anxious presence, a presence of peace, and somebody who's going to provide an outlet and escape for some of those kids as well. Now, our young life leaders are still having to be creative with the way that they maintain connection with kids in a way that is contrary to our mission and to who we are. But we're confident in how resilient we all have to be, but also we find our confidence in the Lord. We know that he is a God of healing and that he is going to bring restoration and better things at the end of this. And so we trust that. And so any way that we have been able to build connection with kids and maintain and grow our own faith in the midst of this, we're confident that this will make us better ministers of the gospel at the end of this than it would be beforehand. For the staff and for the Newberg Young Life Committee, what this has also meant is making sure that our priority has been kept on accomplishing the goals that we have set for this year. And so now I'd like to share with you just a couple of what those goals are and a little bit of how we plan to accomplish them by the end of 2020. One of the things that we got to run in this last fall, was a new leader training program at George Fox University. One of the core principles of this program was to help college students figure out what it means to own their faith and build it and grow it in the midst of a college environment where it may be the first time where they've ever had to rely on their own selves or their own built community in order to maintain and grow their faith. And so the core principle of this program was that they did not all have to become young life leaders at the end of the program, but it resided around this thought that all followers of Christ require an outlet for their faith, that they need to find some form of expression, whether that's within Young Life or a church ministry or a different parachurch ministry or program, that being a follower of Jesus means that we need to find a way to express our faith beyond our own selves and beyond four walls. And so we had 20 students participate in this program this last fall, and 16 of them became new Young Life, Wildlife, and Young Life College leaders this year. And so our hope is to expand that program going into the fall of 2020, so that we can place even more leaders within our existing ministries, but also be able to send leaders to our surrounding communities, which would be our next two goals, to begin St. Paul Young Life and a Capernaum Club for our friends with special needs. Though we desire to start those two ministries within the next year, the immediate goal for both St. Paul Young Life and for a Capernaum Club is to identify teams of adult support. And so the desire behind that is that we absolutely want to go and reach kids out in St. Paul, and we absolutely want to reach kids at Newberg High School with special needs. However, we want those ministry efforts to last beyond anything that one person could establish or one team could establish. We know that the longevity of Young Life and of Newberg Young Life locally is thanks in large part due to the larger group and community support that we experience both through committee and through our larger community or team of support. And so establishing adult support teams around St. Paul and specifically for a Capernaum Club will allow us to reach those kids, not just for a year or two, but for 10, 20, 30 years to come. And so those are some of the goals that we have in terms of direct ministry. One of the other goals that we have is to establish a comprehensive student staff program that would allow juniors and seniors at George Fox to either receive credit through a myriad of different academic programs or a small stipend. And in and paired with that, they would also get comprehensive training from the local staff as well as our regional staff. And the purpose of that is to be able to share the resource that we have here in this community with surrounding communities, that we would be able to identify trained and equipped leaders who might have some sort of discernment to make in terms of going into full-time ministry. And so this will give them an opportunity to get hands-on ministry training, as well as discern whether or not a call to Young Life staff is something that they want to pursue. And this would go on to affect different communities outside of Newberg, but would also benefit us in being able to place team leaders for our existing ministries, but also the ones that we hope to develop here as well. For all of those goals, and for any of our direct ministry initiatives that we're hoping to pursue this year, one of the big goals in terms of finances that we want to pursue by the end of 2020 is to increase our monthly support team by $3,000. Right now, where we're at, a $3,000 increase in our monthly support would allow us to continue to fund our existing ministries and also help fund any of the new ones that we want to start within Newberg. But what it really allows us to do is to cover our ongoing direct ministry and operating expenses that we experience month to month, regardless of different events or different times of year. So these are the things that we continually have to pay for week in and week out. And so things like club and direct ministry expenses, one-on-ones, small groups, but also things that it takes for us to operate our ministries, such as paying the rent for our club room or office or things like that. And so increasing just $3,000 by the end of 2020 allows us to experience a marginal increase month to month, or at least that's our goal, is that we would increase our monthly support team marginally, incrementally by the end of 2020, so that we can experience sustained ministry effort, and that we don't have to worry about whether or not we're going to be able to provide a place to host club or things like that as well. While every gift makes a direct impact in the lives of kids here in Newberg, our hope is that we would be able to start to turn toward having our big event fundraisers, so our banquet and our golf tournament, and have those be geared towards funding camp experiences, as well as new ministry initiatives. So if we're ever looking to expand into new towns or to expand our current ministry, that we'd be able to rely on our banquet and our golf tournament in order to start and kickstart those new initiatives as well. And so those are some of our goals for 2020. If you have any questions about how we plan to accomplish any of those or operate any of those, you will get an email with my contact information. I have a lot of time for phone calls and video calls at this time. So if you'd like to schedule one of those, I'm more than willing to discuss any of these things, or if you have ideas on how you'd like to be involved or help us accomplish those. At the end of this presentation, we'll have a time for some questions as well. But you'll also get my contact information. So turning a little bit of a corner, one of the things we talk a lot about in Young Life in general is how amazing our leaders are. I honestly cannot brag about them enough or hype them up enough. They seriously give a lot of their time and energy and money towards being some of the best friends of the kids that we get to pursue for relationship and for the kingdom. But even though we spend a lot of time talking about leaders, I know that I have to have a lot of conversations with people who just don't really know what the commitment of a Young Life leader is. And so we have a little video we'd like to show you that is the life of a Young Life leader and what it takes. So this is the life of a Young Life leader.
There's this common conversation that happens between kids and their parents. It's September, the leaves are falling, and every kid in the universe is excited about one thing: Friday night football. The teenager finishes dinner at home and is already halfway out the door when he turns around and shouts, "Mom, I'm going to my Young Life leader's house after the game." Not so fast, mister. Explaining Young Life isn't easy. The only thing harder than explaining Young Life is explaining Young Life to worried parents. How worried? Kitchen table conversation worried. The hardest part to explain for the kid isn't the Young Life events or the Young Life camps. It's the relationship with these guys. Who are these people, and why do they spend all their time with high schoolers and middle schoolers? What's a Young Life leader? It's Monday. The leader is supposed to get up at 5:45 a.m. They end up getting up at 5:54, so no time to shower. They need to be at a school that they didn't graduate from in 20 minutes to pass out donuts. Luckily, they can drive to this school in their sleep because they've spent every Monday for months doing the same exact thing, which is why they threw away the donut holes and started using the whole thing, no pun intended. Even though no one wanted donuts and they burned through half a tank of gas, they consider the morning a success. Another quarter tank of gas later, and they are home just on time for their 8 a.m. psychology lecture. Yeah, psychology lecture. College isn't going to finish itself. Classes drag, but once they're finished, it's back up to the school that they didn't graduate from. It's campaigners tonight, which is pretty much just a Bible study for people that wouldn't usually come to one. Moms are happy everywhere that their child's NIV is no longer collecting dust.
Campaigners is a place where people can be real. It's a place where people are free to ask the questions that they've always been thinking and find out those answers.
Right before they sleep, they briefly recall all the new names that they had learned that day at the school that they didn't All right, you get it. Tuesday. Sun rises. Tuesday is an almost identical day to Monday, minus the donuts and plus a basketball game. They see that student again. They laugh at one of your jokes. Let's go! On their way back home, they stop by the local sports bar and ask about fundraising opportunities. The leader needs to raise a lot of money and not a lot of time if they want all the students to go to Young Life Camp. What's Young Life Camp? It's the best week of your life, but we really don't have time to talk about that right now. Wednesday. Club Day, Young Life's party with a purpose. The leader has been rehearsing their lines for weeks for a silly skit that may or may not be funny. Is Salt Bae still funny? Anyways, Club isn't just some loud event that starts at 8:08. It's a loud event that breaks down walls. It just happens to be at a goofy time.
Young Life Club's weird.
Play a ton of games, listen to music, dance, talk at the end about Jesus.
That one student came and had the best time while hearing about a God who loved them. No, seriously, is Salt Bae still funny or have we moved on? Fast forward to the weekend. No one wants to see more lectures and car rides. We get it, you're in college, you do a lot of stuff. The leader has now spent a total of 5 hours and a tank and a half of gas of going to and from the school that they lead at.
I fill up my gas tank every single time I'm in Pennytown.
It's a quiet Sunday afternoon, the perfect time to catch up on schoolwork. Then the phone rings. It's from an unknown number, which usually means don't pick up, but for some reason, they do. It's that student. They ask to get lunch. Suddenly, homework isn't important. I'm on my way. The donuts, the basketball games, they're good things. In fact, they're great, but they're meaningless if they don't lead to something bigger. This is the heartbeat of Young Life, and it always has been. The something doesn't have to be sensational. It doesn't have to be spectacle. It doesn't have to be club, campaigners, or even Young Life Camp. The walls are already down, the teenager is already won, and the stage is already set for something. It's this: to introduce teenagers to Jesus Christ and help them grow in their faith. It looks like this. It's not just because they care, but it's because they've been transformed by God's love and feel compelled to share that in the best way they know how. What's a Young Life leader? They're people, just like you and I. But what does a Young Life leader do? They care. And it looks a lot like showing up one day at a time.
Now that's a little bit different than what our Young Life leaders here in Newberg experience, mostly because they don't have to drive that far to get to the high school or middle schools, and probably aren't spending that much on gas unless they're taking their kids to In and Out every week, and then they might be spending that. But that's the heart of it. Our leaders are some of the most dedicated and responsible and fun people that I have ever met. They are pursuing Christ in their own way and are committed to understanding who he is and who they are in light of that relationship. And they know and are certain in their leadership being out of a place of overflow and knowing that that they need to be able to be centered in who they are in Christ and their identity in Christ in order to share that with our teenage friends. And so I could go on and talk about them a lot, but I actually think it'd be better to hear from a couple of them. So we're going to hear from a couple of our leaders, and then we're going to get a chance to hear the testimony of one of our students that we work with. And so first up, I've asked Alex Baker, who's one of our Young Life College leaders, to share. So she's going to introduce herself real quick, and I'm going to spotlight her video. Hey, Alex, how's it going?
I'm good. How are you?
So good. All right, Alex, you can take it away.
Hey guys. First of all, thanks Justin, and I'm so glad you guys are here to watch. It's definitely not the same in person, but I like that we can at least do this. Let's see. I'm Alex Baker. I am a Young Life leader here in Newberg at the college at George Fox University. I'm a recent alumni from George Fox University. I graduated with a BSN in nursing, and now I just work in the area. So I'm going to tell you just a little bit about my experience with Young Life personally, and then how it's affected those around me and those that I lead, and then how it's affected my own life. So I actually, a little different from most people who have grown up with Young Life. I grew up in a small enough town where there wasn't really anything but a blinking yellow light. And so Young Life wasn't a part of that town. So I actually found Young Life when I was in college, a couple years into college. So it took me a while to find it, but I found it, and I attended the clubs, and the leaders were great. Was growing in my own faith. I think college for me was a place that I just kind of bloomed and discovered new things about myself and my own faith, being away from my parents. So yeah, I began to do that, and then about a semester in, I went to a work weekend at the Washington Family Ranch, and we just served a bunch of kids. It was a good, I think on a Saturday we walked 13 miles just bussing tables. And if you guys have, whoever's watching, if you've done it, you know what I mean. But and for some reason I just loved it. I loved serving and working that hard, and I wanted to go back, and so I went back for spring break, college work week. And during spring break, the idea was proposed to me to maybe do summer staff, which was volunteering at the camp for an extended amount of time during the summer. I said, I don't know. But through the week, I was like, that actually sounds fun. And it sounds like I would love to serve and do things like that. And so I went and applied really late, and I actually got in. So summer of 2018, I did 2 months at Washington Family Ranch up on the ropes course. It's really fun. Thankfully, I'm not afraid of heights, but it was, most people are. So it was really cool to help kids get through that fear, but also experience Christ through conquering their own fears and trusting in the people and leaders around them. And then last summer, I went back to camp and volunteered as a sound technician there at Washington Family Ranch Canyon, which is the high school side of camp. So, and then after that, I decided to become a dedicated leader at George Fox University. And so my time after camp has been spent cultivating a small group of freshman women. I have about 9 women in my small group, and we meet still ever since September. Every Monday night at 7:30 we've met, and through the pandemic we have continued to meet on Zoom every Monday night at 7:30. It's definitely different on Zoom, but it's still good that we get to meet and catch up on life. So I guess my involvement so far has been I was involved myself, and then I went to camp, and then I became a leader, which has been awesome. So I think the 2 places I've seen it affect the people around me is at camp, so all the campers around me, and then with my small group and with the young people at college. At camp, I think I just saw how just serving kids and bringing them a week where they don't have to worry about where they're at or what families they're with or the conflicts that they experience at home. They just get to be in a place where people love on them and people serve them and people really just embody who Christ is, because I think the best way to teach kids, or really most people, is to model it yourself. If you want someone to change or someone to learn, you should be like that change. So I think at camp, loving on them and cultivating inside myself who Jesus is, really made them feel loved. There was a lot of kids who came to Christ. I just remember each week seeing them come up on stage and saying their name and accepting Christ. It was just amazing to see every week that happened. I was there for 8 weeks one summer and 4 the next. So that's 12 weeks. And every week there was a massive group of kids that accepted Christ. And then they would go home with their leaders, and their leaders would still be with them and continue to like cultivate that in them. So it was just really cool to see even just the help. I remember one week at camp, just for an example, I met this girl, and she was very much struggling, wanted to tell me a secret she'd never tell anyone else, and she just was in a lot of conflict in her family. And the end of the week came, and I saw her again. And mind you, I'm not like her leader, I'm just someone there on the ropes course, but we connected in a way that was good. And I ran into her at the end of the week, and she said, "Alex, like, I have decided to follow Jesus. I've decided to follow Jesus." And for me, she just shared a story of she felt like Jesus just touched her on the shoulder and just kind of called her into relationship with him. And after that, I said, "I'm here for another like 6 weeks, so I can't talk to you, but I'd love to stay connected." And we did. She texted me, and I want to share. That was 2 years ago. I want to share a text that I got like a month ago from her. So hold on just 1 second while I grab it. But we stayed connected. She lives in Salem, I'm in Newberg, and I would drive to Salem. I think we got a meal probably 4 or 5 times, and just like I just offered for her to call me anytime she was struggling, and so she did. Let me find it. So this is a text she sent me a couple months ago. She said, "I just want to say thank you and I love you." She's moving to Arizona soon, so she was updating me on that. She said, "I will always consider you a family. Before we move, and once this pandemic is over, we will have to meet up and see each other again. But most importantly, I just want to say thank you for everything. I'm now going to be 3 years clean and sober, growing with God and continually growing within God. I really do believe this will be good for my mental health and my relationship with Christ." It was so amazing to get that text, knowing that we met randomly at a random event at a camp, stayed connected, got a couple meals, and to see her still growing with Christ, going from not knowing Christ to trusting Christ in a move was just amazing. So that's camp. Now I'm a leader at George Fox University. It's cool because I went there, so as opposed to the video, it's a school that I've been to, so it's really easy for me to relate to everyone in their homework and what they're doing and the teachers, and I can just conversation with that stuff just flows because I know. And I love being a leader there. I love going to club. I think the impact there has mostly been on the small group of girls that I lead every Monday night. Last semester, I structured the time to where each week we would hear and share our life stories with each other. And I asked before this started each girl, I said, "Has anyone ever shared their testimony or their life story?" And mind you, these are all freshman girls. This is their first year in college. This is their first time away from home. There's 9 of them sitting in front of me, and no one raised their hand. And I was like, no one's ever like shared their story? Nope. So I ended up taking a day and just sharing with them and telling them like what it looks like to share your story and why that's important. And then the rest of the semester we shared our stories, and it just brought us closer. I think sometimes it feels like nothing's happening, Like, and the other leaders can attest to this, like you're handing out donuts, you're getting up early, feels like a very steep incline, like nothing's happening relationship wise. And then, like the video said, someone laughs at your joke and you're like, yeah, I'm getting somewhere. And then later, the relationship just slowly starts to bloom. And then it kind of plateaus into this, yeah, let's get coffee and you can call me anytime and it's great. And so I think that's last semester was that upward battle of, do they even like to come to my house? Do they even like the snacks that I bring? Like dino nuggets were a hit, but not the apples and peanut butter. And by the end of the semester, the girls were like, we're going to miss you and we need to stay in contact. And it was fun to walk through life, but also share my own life and my own struggles with them through the semester so that they can see that I am not perfect either. Like I'm not a leader because I'm perfect. I'm a leader because I want to help them as they grow and as I grow. I want to help them know Jesus. So I think it's fun to share also with the girls in my own life, because then they can see like, oh, this isn't about being perfect and becoming like that perfect, picturesque young life leader. This is about a relationship with Christ and walking through life and conflicts and pandemics, knowing Christ and becoming dependent on him. And so that's what we've been working through this last semester, the girls. And some of the girls are new Christians. One of them just joined and became a Christian. And then there's a couple of us that have been Christians for a long time. So we have a good mix of people. But the second semester, I had a group of girls, the same group of girls. They were like, we want to spend time in the Bible. And for me, that's important because I think basing things on scripture is really important. Like that is the truth. And so why not study the complete truth? So we did that. We picked Colossians and we went through Colossians together. We didn't quite get it all the way through because there's a virus going around, but we've been keeping in contact. So I think the impact is I just have gotten a couple notes from them just thanking me and saying like, thanks for being available. And I think that's what being a leader is primarily about, is not being perfect, but showing them love and then being available. Like answering that phone call and being like, yeah, I'll come over. Or yeah, let's meet for coffee. I had a couple girls that had a really hard time with some scholastic conflicts and they were like, yeah, like I need to talk some things out with you, or I have this roommate issue and I need to see how you would have dealt with that and get some wisdom there. And sometimes I don't know how to give that, but I kind of rely on Jesus and maybe some other co-leaders' input on that. So I've seen a lot of how Christ works through young life to really bring people closer to him. So that's really cool. In my own life, I think is definitely cultivated a little bit more confidence in myself for sharing the gospel. I've been studying like how to be bold in sharing Christ lately, and I think young life has been an avenue for me to grow how bold I can be with sharing Christ and just being more vulnerable with where I'm at and how I'm learning and how I'm growing. And then even at clubs, like giving, like studying beforehand and making kind of a sermon or talk for club and being able to lead a big group of like 50 people talking about the word, or leading them into the new year with this is the new year with some scripture and here's what Jesus is talk. That's definitely built up confidence in myself as a leader. I think Jesus had a lot of confidence when he was here on earth, and I think that is a really good asset to showing who Christ is. It's definitely also pushed me to in my own personal life, the responsibility of being a leader, to make sure that I am in the word and that I am praying and that I'm also like interceding for my small group in prayer and things like that. So that's what I have been through in Young Life, and it's been really good and really fulfilling. And yeah, I don't know, Justin. That's
Thanks,
what I
Alex.
got.
Yeah.
Yep.
Really appreciate you sharing your heart in that way. And, I think it's been a privilege for me to be able to see you jump into leading after being a participant in Young Life College and really go after it with that group of girls. I think it's been amazing to see the commitment that way. So thank you for your dedication as a leader and your heart for Christ and for Fox students. I love that. So everyone, next up, we're going to have Noah Burlingame, who is one of our Young Life leaders who leads freshman boys at Newberg High School. So he is back home up in Washington, sharing with us from up there. So Noah, I'm going to go ahead and spotlight your video here. You can take it away. Noah, you might be on mute, dude.
Sorry, it's probably my headphones. They're going dead. So my name's Noah, and I'm from Washington. I'm up from Tacoma area, and I just finished my sophomore year at George Fox. So a little bit about like my history with Young Life. I did it. So I was a Young Life kid all through high school. I went to camp right after my freshman year. And then after that, I did work crew, and then work crew twice, actually, once at Malibu and once at Washington Family Ranch. And then I got to go do summer staff last summer again at Malibu. And I was on track to do it again this summer until Malibu got closed. So yeah, so that's a little bit about my history with Young Life. And so this past year was my first year leading, and it was a cool experience. I'm pretty new to the leading aspect of Young Life. I'd been I'd worked at camp, and I'd been a Young Life kid, but I'd never been in kind of a leadership position, and so it was a little bit of a transition, and it was definitely a different mindset, and it was a little bit challenging to try to think about where the high school kids that I was interacting with, like where they were, and it was really cool. So we trained, all the new leaders got to go through a training course, which was it started last semester, fall semester of this past school year, and lasted up until winter break, and then this spring semester is when we got to find out where we were going to be placed for the next couple of years, and we got to start going to club and campaigners and all that great stuff. And so I was kind of in the beginning stages. Alex has been around a little bit longer, and so she's gotten to do more and become more invested, but I am kind of in the beginning stages of that. And we got to put on a couple really cool clubs. We got to do one campfire club on the George Fox campus there, and it was super cool. It turned out really well, and yeah, so it was cool getting to become involved in putting on clubs, since I've been to so many, and I've been behind the scenes at a few at camp, and so it was cool to kind of be there putting it on. And one of the things that I really enjoyed getting to do was I, along with two other leaders, we're not in charge of, basically, like, we are the freshman high school boys leaders. And so we're, we're so getting to know the freshman guys that I'll be kind of leading for the next, I guess, 2 years until I graduate. We got to start doing this campaigners group every Wednesday morning, and we'd meet at the Coffee Cat there in Newberg, and we were working through the book of Mark, and it was great. We had a small group. It was normally 4 or 5 guys, along with me and 2 other leaders, and so it was small, but it felt very personal and very intimate, and it was cool to see this group of freshman guys who really, and it's not easy. Wednesday, I think, is their day that they start an hour later at school. And so, most kids are using that extra hour to sleep. And it was cool to see that this group of freshman boys, like, they're willing to use that hour and still wake up at the same time and go, drink coffee and hang out with us, but also like dive deeper into this Bible study and this study of the book of Mark. And so I really enjoyed getting to do that, and I'm looking forward to it again next semester. But it was cool to kind of build those connections and to really, start diving deeper. And and Justin always says, Young Life isn't about club. It's a great tool, but club isn't what it's about. It's a place to draw kids in and to kind of, show what Young Life is as an organization. But ultimately, Campaigners is more what it's about. It's about that really like diving deep into a relationship with Jesus and really going deeper and trying to grasp a little bit more of the Bible like we were doing. And so that was something I really enjoyed doing this past semester. And personally, it's been it's been challenging for sure, and it's definitely a big time commitment, and that was something I knew going in, but it was something I didn't really appreciate until I got there. And every Monday night we either have club or a meeting, and then Campaigners every Wednesday morning. And another outreach I got to be involved in was it was like a homework tutoring lab at the high school, and I loved doing that. It was cool because basically, like, the relationship with Young Life in the high school was such that if like a teacher knew that a kid was struggling, they would send them to our homework lab after school. And so it was cool to meet a bunch of kids, most of who probably don't know what Young Life is, but work on something super practical. Like I helped with physics a bunch, and it was cool to get to do that. And so it's affected me, I would say, by I guess just how I view like real practical relational ministry. And I think Young Life is obviously a very relational ministry in that its sole focus is going into high schools or middle schools and not trying to preach at kids, but trying to love on them and to be there with whatever they need. And so it's cool. It's something I'm still trying to grow in my own ability to do that, and something that I'm excited to keep working on next year. The really relational aspect of ministry. And so it's been a great year, and I'm really excited to keep getting to know everyone. Keep getting to know all the Young Life guys I'll be leading, and I'm excited for this next year.
Awesome. Thank you for sharing, Noah. I met Noah actually, I think his first couple months as a freshman last year when we talked a little bit about leading. And so it was really fun for me and an extreme privilege to get to know him over this even more so over this last year through new leader training, and even getting to see his heart and his talent for working with kids. So it's been such a cool thing for me to get to do. Next up, guys, we have something that I'm really excited to be able to share with you all, which is that we're going to invite one of our students actually to come and share his story. And so today you're going to get to hear from Malachi Amaya, who's one of our junior guys at Newberg High School, and he's going to share with you just his testimony and how he's seen the Lord work in his life, both through Young Life, but also through church and through friends and his social life and everything like that. And so I'm going to bring Malachi up here. I'm going to bring Malachi up here, and he's going to share his story with you all.
Hi, everybody. If you didn't catch it, my name's Malachi. I'm a junior at Newberg High School, and I'm just going to be sharing with you guys just my life. So I grew up in a Christian home, and that means like my parents, they would always force us kids to go to church. And I dislike church like so much. Like I would fake being sick, or I'd stay the night at my friend's house Saturday night just to skip out on church because I disliked it. But the times I did go, I would sit in Sunday school and like learn a little bit. So like I knew all the, I guess like the church like Bible stories that you would learn in Sunday school. But then middle school rolls around, and this is when like me and my friends start to form like cliques in school. So now like I'm a part of the jocks, or like the popular group. I hate to say it, but I was, and through that I was also doing sports and everything like that. And friends and sports were like the main thing in my life, and that was like the most important thing, was my popularity and like football and wrestling and stuff like that. So carrying that in through high school, I was still playing football, still with the same group of guys. And then one day after football practice, my mom picks me up, and we're driving. And when I get in the car, she just starts crying, and it was really out of nowhere. And nobody, like she or my dad, didn't talk to me about it, but I already knew what it was. And she just tells me that that her and my dad are getting a divorce. And that was kind of like an eye opener, because that, like, I saw that brokenness is like that only happened in like others people's lives, like that would never happen to me, but it happened and I was devastated. So then that year I quit football. I was just done with it. And then what I didn't know is quitting football also meant that my friends would drop me. So now within first 6 months of school, like my family's getting a divorce, my friends dropped me, and I'm done with like sports. So that was really hard. And then going into sophomore year, I'm like, okay, I'm gonna do online school, because I was tired of people. So I did online school. And during that time, like I felt lonely at school. So if you thought felt lonely at school, like I felt 10 times more lonely doing online school. It got to the point where I was like, suicidal thoughts started creeping in, and I didn't know what to do. Like I couldn't even like roll out of bed on a couple days, because it just got too hard. But I was working for my friend's dad at the time in a cabinet shop, and I was making cabinets. And one day after work, I go to say hi to a couple of my friends, and they were telling me about Malibu, which was last summer. And they're like, "Hey, dude, like, you want to go?" And I was like, "Heck yeah! Like, I just want to go. I just want to get out of Newberg, just get out of my home, and everything like that." So so right then, that day I called Taylor, and I'm like, "Hey, like, I want to sign up." So I get signed up, pay the deposit, and then it was like a couple weeks later, something like that, I show up, didn't know, like I knew a couple of my friends, didn't really know anybody. And yeah, I go to Malibu, and I met like my whole cabin like on the bus ride. And just and camp was such a blessing, just being able to go. And I experienced just this peace and comfort that I've never experienced before. And I'm like, wow, like I can take this and take it home and take it to my normal life. But also at camp, I was like, oh, like I need new friends, and I wanted to pursue a relationship with like just boys there that believed in Christ and were also trying to grow their relationship in Jesus. So I go home, and I wasn't talking to them a whole lot, and I end up like falling into the same stuff, my daily routine that I was before. And then I remember one day really vividly, I get home from a friend's house, and then I was sleeping, and I wake up, and it was just this thought about me going to the park and just reading and journaling a little bit. And I was like, oh, like, why not? I'm not doing anything. So I just go down there, And then all of a sudden 2 friends like walk up that also went to Malibu, and I was like, oh, what's up, guys? And they're like, hey, like there's this 10-day like work crew thing tomorrow, and nobody's heard about it. And she's like, yeah, like are you guys going? And I was like, okay, like now I am. So I call up Justin, and this is the first time I've ever talked to him. Like I don't even think I talked to him at camp a whole lot. I think I handed him my passport and my money or something like that to go to Malibu. But I call him and I'm like, hey, like can I go? And he's like, oh, like there's already another guy going. So then I call back an hour later, and I'm like, hey, like are you sure I can't go? And he's like, actually the guy that was gonna go can't go anymore, so we have an extra spot. So I was like, okay, bet. So the next morning I'm in the car with these guys, and these are a few of the guys that I want to build a relationship with. So I'm like, okay, like this is it. So I go to the work crew, and it was like such a great experience to like build a relationship. It's like the right atmosphere and everything like that. But it got to the point where I was chasing after a relationship with those guys more than actually like trying to build my relationship with Jesus. But once I realized like that I am fulfilled through Jesus, and Jesus like gave me like the life that I'm living right now, that enabled me to enter a relationship with the guys at the camp, and it just made the experience so much better. So now those guys, I never thought like I'd be right here, but those guys, they're now my closest friends. I never thought I'd be involved in Young Life at all. But now I'm involved in like 3 campaigners. I'm a wildlife leader. And really like those guys are my best friends, and my life has just been changed so much. Thank you.
Well, thanks, Malachi. Definitely appreciate you being able to share that, and the courage and boldness that you just demonstrate by sharing your story. And for everyone who got to hear that, what a privilege and what an opportunity to be able to see, really realistically see the impact that Newberg Young Life has made on just one life that you got to hear today. And so our hope is always that we would be able to not just replicate in a factory sort of sense, but that we can see that kind of transformation that Malachi has experienced and acknowledged in his own life, but share that with a world of kids. In John 5:24, it says that for whoever hears my word and believes in my name, he is crossed over from death into life. And one of the things I like to share with our Young Life leaders all the time is that there are no such thing as small miracles, that there's nothing that the Lord is going to do in your life that is going to be insignificant. And for us to be in the lives of kids and to work with them and to realistically show them the hope that is in the gospel of Jesus Christ, we actually get to see them cross over from death into life in the moment where they accept Jesus. And that is a huge privilege, and that is something that I don't take lightly, and that I know that our leaders don't take lightly as well. That we get to have these significant conversations with kids, and we get to create holy places in parking lots and in booths at Sherry's and McDonald's and things like that, where we get to ask kids realistically, what do they think? How do they feel? Who is this Jesus, and what does he mean to them? And so there are holy places that have been created all around Newberg because of the mission of Young Life. And that is in large part, again, to the dedicated people who began praying for this mission 20 years ago. And now here we are in 2020, and we're looking to do more. We want to reach the next kid. We want to look and have our eyes set on the communities around us and within our larger community, where we have to ask, is there anybody reaching these kids? Is there anybody sharing the hope of the gospel with that kid? And so that means that we need more leaders. That means that we need more resources to be able to train them, to equip them, and make sure that they feel feel all commissioning and all confidence in being able to reach out into those communities just as Christ did before. And what that's going to take is a concerted effort, not just from Young Life staff or leaders or the people who are involved within the organization, but from the larger community. I think we can, everybody who's watching this could probably identify one or two needs that they know that the youth of this community have. And I know even talking with the kids that I lead, they can identify a list of maybe 100 or 200 things that they know their community needs. And so the real question that we have to ask ourselves is, how are we going to respond to that? And so for us, what I'd like to invite you to view right now is just a little bit of the impact and a little bit of the challenge that Newberg Young Life leaders are stepping into and some of the responses that they hear from kids, but also some of the challenges. So I'm going to play this video. And as I play this video, what I would like for you to consider prayerfully and going into the future is whether or not you would not just be a supporter of Newberg Young Life, but would you become an advocate? And the distinction I want to make between those two is we have people who have blessed our ministry through prayer and finances and through providing practical needs like places to have campaigners or small groups or meals or things like that. And that is all wonderful and beautiful. And I love that expression of the church in this community. But what we really need is people who are able to identify others within this community who would be willing to support our mission either through prayer, finances, or practical needs. And we all know that we have a network, we have friends, we have people who care about the things that we care about. And so what I'm going to ask for everyone to consider here today is not only would you consider giving financially, but would you consider becoming an advocate for Newberg Young Life? If you want more information, or if you're willing to let me talk you through what exactly that means, I'm more than happy and willing to do that. I'm going to play this video, and then I'm going to have a few instructions on how you can respond after that, and then we'll end things here. But for right now, this is the response to leadership and the response that kids are making, or that leaders have in this community. So I'm going to show a slide here in a second that's going to show you different ways that you're able to support Newberg Young Life financially. So as we said earlier in the presentation, our goal is that we would be able to increase our monthly support team by $3,000 by the end of the year. Obviously, if we get to that goal sooner than December 2020, that would be great, because that'll leave us some room to expand and to start some things earlier than expected, which would be awesome. We're also going to have a brief time of question and answer. So there's a chat feature on Zoom. And then if anyone's watching on YouTube, we'll be watching that chat as well. So you can send in some questions that if we didn't address here during the presentation, then we'll try to answer those. We'll also be sending out a response to everybody, or a follow-up to everybody via email. So if you registered at our website and you're on Zoom here today, then you'll be getting a little follow-up from us about instructions to move forward. And again, if you're curious about any of the initiatives that we have for this year, feel free to reach out to me. I'll provide my contact information in the follow-up. Again, while we're in the midst of the stay-at-home orders, I do have a lot of time for phone calls. So feel free to drop me a call or shoot me an email. I'd love to discuss some of the things that we're planning on going forward. If you're watching on our website currently, all you have to do is actually scroll down, and we're going to put this in the chat, the web address for anybody who's on Zoom. But if you go back to the website where you registered, you'll notice there are a couple of changes on there, and it'll walk you through how to set up a recurring gift or a new gift to Newberg Young Life, as well as explaining some of the impact that a financial gift to Young Life makes, so that you know exactly what your money is going to go towards. I'm gonna put this slide up, and then you guys can send in questions if you have any. It looks like we've got a couple coming in now, and then I'll answer those in order that we receive them. But I want to thank everybody for being here, and thank you for taking some time, about an hour this afternoon, to hear a little bit about our story and the impact that we're making here in Newberg Young Life. And we really appreciate, myself on behalf of the staff and the committee, really the community that is Newberg. I've long said and long felt that this is a community that really likes to rally behind one another. And even in the midst of the stay-at-home order and the quarantine, I've really felt that, and I've really felt the intentionality with which this community takes care of one another. So we're looking forward to the rest of this year. We're looking forward to reclaiming a little bit of normalcy, but also seeing how we can respond as Christians on the other end of this. So thank you again for being here. We really appreciate the support, and we look forward to bringing the kingdom a little bit more here to Newberg. So thank you again. Okay, looks like we got a question about camp fundraisers. Yeah, so we're obviously monitoring the situation with COVID-19 and Young Life camping this summer. And so I'm not going to give too many specifics, but know that we are working as hard as we can with the information that we have right now to provide some sort of summer camp experience for kids this summer going forward. And so might look a little bit different given the current circumstance, but we're still looking to provide some kind of camp experience. Fundraisers that we have are the same ones that we've been offering in the past couple of years. So our mulch fundraiser is scheduled for May 16th and 17th. We will be observing any social distancing requirements and all precautions with that. That's still one of our main fundraisers. And so I think right now we're full up on that weekend for orders. Yeah, so we'll be operating that fundraiser with social distancing with smaller groups as possible. And then kids are also still selling Caravan Coffee, the Happy Camper blend. And so a kid just needs to contact their leader. their leader will connect them with the coffee. We've been dropping it off on porches most recently whenever they tell us that they need to sell some. So that's how that one's been operating. Capernaum, there's a question about, okay, what is Capernaum? Capernaum is our ministry for kids with special needs. And so this covers a myriad of different types of kids. And so some might have autism or Down syndrome or other developmental or cognitive disabilities, but it's a ministry, an outreach ministry specifically intended for those kids. Oh yes, our golf tournament is scheduled right now for July 31st, and so that's the same weekend that we had it as last year. Again, we're monitoring all social distancing and gathering requirements for that, and working with Salem Glen Golf Course on and how we might need to amend the structure of our tournament. But for right now, we're still planning on operating it on July 31st. Our new banquet date, so we will still have a banquet in 2020. It is going to be October 18th. So we're gonna have a fall banquet this year, which will be fun. But you can look forward to more information about that as we get a little bit closer. Okay, another question is when do we expect to resume clubs? Well, typically in the summer we don't run Young Life or Wildlife or Young Life College Club as we do during the school year, so it's more event centered. With the current situation, we are looking basically as soon as we can. And so it's great to be able to connect with our kids virtually and be able to maintain some kind of contact that way, but we're really looking forward to being able to be with each other again. And so both for campaigners and for club. And so as soon as the social distance requirements are lifted and as soon as we're able to gather in groups again, we'll be looking to plan some Young Life and Wildlife events. Another question is when is new leader training? New leader training begins, for the George Fox program at least, that new leader training will begin September 1st. So that's the first week of school, Tuesday night from 8 to 9:30. Yep. Oh, in the Fox, we meet in the foxhole on George Fox's campus for that. All right, well, that looks like all the questions. I'll leave it a couple more moments. But again, I would like to thank everybody for taking some time to view our little presentation here. This will be available in a different format on that same website that you registered on. So we'll have the content here with maybe with all of the awkward transitions and things like that removed, and the video interaction that might be a little weird if you're watching it afterwards. But so we'll have all this information and basically a print layout of our virtual banquet available on the website that you registered at. And again, we'll send that link out afterwards. And if you have any questions, again, feel free to shoot them to myself or to Doug Caffel, who is our committee chair. Oh, sorry, it looks like one more question. On this last slide that you're currently viewing, if you're still viewing, there is a QR code. All you have to do is open your camera on your smartphone and point it at the QR code, and it will direct you right to our direct to giving website, where you can set up a one-time or a monthly gift. Alrighty, well, we're gonna go ahead and end it here. But again, thank you for taking some time to view this and to hear about our goals for this year. We really look forward to all the work that the Lord's going to do through this mission and through Newberg Young Life. So if you have any questions, you can reach out to me. I will again send my contact information, or Doug Caffel, our committee chair, if you're interested in learning more about committee, or Lori Rauch, who is our leader care coordinator, if you want to see how you can care for some leaders. But again, thank you for being with us today, and we look forward to everything we'll get to do in the future. All right, thank you all.